Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Trump's favorability rating is just off the charts. His favorability rating is surging, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, it's understandable why. Anybody can understand why this is the case. But there are naysayers out there very, very, very troubled, very, very, very worried about the Trump transition. Very, very concerned about how Trump is just like a bull in a china shop. He's acting like the president already. He's trumping Obama. He's going around Obama. He's ignoring Obama. He simply is being insensitive about Obama. And Obama's still the president. And people very, very concerned over this China thing. This is all funny to watch. I have to tell you, I'm getting such entertainment watching this crack up. All throughout the Washington establishment. Anyway, great to have you with us, folks. Telephone number, if you want to join us, 800-282-2882. So last night, I got an email from a buddy last night who had an observation, and I had been thinking about it too, but it was not in the front of my mind, the top of my mind consciousness. But it's a random thought that I'd had over and again a couple, three times. And basically what this email was, Rush, can you explain something to me? Why is it that Donald Trump is not rewarding his biggest supporters with positions of substance and power in his administration? Why is Donald Trump, say, ignoring Rudy and ignoring the Nootster and ignoring others and, in fact, spending all this time with people who did not support him? Like Romney is the name that came to mind. And as I say, I had that fleeting thought myself. It was more an observation, not a question. It was just something I had observed. And I was thinking about it last night to prepare myself to discuss it with you today. And it's amazing how things happen. Because in the process of doing show prep today, I encountered a post by our old buddy Stephen Hayward at Powerline. We've interviewed Steve. He's a Reagan expert of sorts. He's written a book or two on Reagan. We've interviewed Steve here for the Limbaugh letter. But his post is called The Machiavellian Trump. And he basically asks, what's Trump up to? And here's his post news item. Trump's most vocal loyalists during the campaign, Chris Christie, Newt Gingrich, Rudy Giuliani, have been completely passed over for senior positions. News item. Trump meets twice with Mitt Romney, dangling the position of Secretary of State to one of his most severe critics in the whole nomination battle. And then we see Trump and Ivanka meeting with Al Gore yesterday. And Trump is meeting with a lot of people who opposed him, a lot of people who mocked him and made fun of him. And while he has put some of his most ardent supporters in very close positions, like White House advisor staff positions, some of the most visible and prominent longtime supporters of Trump are being passed over. And in the case of Chris Christie, you could even say publicly shamed. To an extent. And Hayward has posted a couple of, an excerpt from the book The Prince by Machiavelli, which deals with this exact phenomenon. And essentially, without reading the writings of Machiavelli, I'll just paraphrase it for you. It's his book, The Prince. And if it's uncanny. It's uncanny how applicable what Machiavelli wrote hundreds of years ago is to what Trump is doing today. You've always heard the allegation that's very Machiavellian, and it's an insult in many cases, because Machiavelli was he was a strategist, and he was practiced in the art of deceit and in human nature. But I mean, I'll read it to you explicitly. But here's the paraphrase. The paraphrase is that it's always better for the prince, in this case, Trump. The prince is the primary subject. The prince is the leader. The prince is the winner. The prince is the alpha dog. The prince is the person everybody bows down to. Not a royalty prince, just top dog. And Machiavelli didn't theorize, he stated that the prince is much better served by putting opponents, people who opposed him, in positions of power, because they must, in order to secure and save and operate in those positions of power with approval, they must perform by action their duties in unquestioned loyalty to the prince. Whereas, if the prince goes out and finds the people who were his most vocal supporters from the get-go and puts them in positions of power, the odds are they're never going to be happy, because they're always going to think they should have had more. And so they're going to be resentful in large part throughout the term of their service. Whereas the people who oppose the prince will end up being owned by the prince because the prince is saving them. Normally, opposing somebody who's been elected president, you're done. You're finished. But if the prince brings some or any of those people into his orbit, those people are grateful, and I think it's true in this case. This is public life. These are people who live and die by their reputations. They live and die by virtue of what people think of them, by their resume. And so the Machiavellian theory is that the people who opposed you, the most vociferously, the most rudely, you bring them in, if they're qualified, you bring them in and you own them. Because they will have to continue to prove their loyalty day in and day out by virtue of action, not words. So the theory is bring in Romney and he'll become Trump Jr. He has to in order to stay there. He will not come in and try to sabotage and overthrow Trump. This is the Machiavellian theory. Now, it doesn't apply to everybody. Romney might be somebody who might try to perform sabotage internally, but that would have to remain to be seen. This is theoretical here from Machiavelli. Anyway, I just find it amazing that last night I get this email from somebody observing the fact that Trump is really not giving these ardent supporters of his much attention at all. They're not showing up at a Trump Tower elevator cam. They're not being reported as visiting with Trump. The news about them is that no positions are being considered. In the case of Rudy, you couldn't find a more eager, a more loyal, a more tireless, day in and day out advocate and supporter and campaigner for Trump. And what is the story on Rudy? Well, we have some problems here with potential conflicts of interest. His business ties, Secretary of State, not sure. And then the list of potentials expands, and the news then, the narrative becomes, it's sad for Rudy. I guess he's not going to get the gig. And who is, for a time, at the top of the list? The one guy who went out of his way to destroy Trump. Mitt Romney. And yet, that's who Trump went to dinner with, had a couple of meetings with, very public, praised Romney. This is all very Machiavellian. Machiavelli. Well, it's not that. It's being asked here, but it's kind of like keep your friends closer, your enemies closer. Perhaps, it might be a good way for low-information voters to look at this. But it's actually far deeper. It's much more intertwined. I don't want to say manipulative, but it's brilliant in its theory. And again, here I am thinking about how I'm going to answer this question because this guy emails me last night, and I've noticed it too. And then today, before the program starts in the process of show prep, I just happened to check the Powerline blog, and there's Stephen Hayward's post. You want to hear a little bit about how Machiavelli actually wrote it? Remember now, Machiavelli goes back to the time of the Borgias. So this is it's like listening to William Bradford's journal. You have to read it 2 or 3 times. It's from book 20 of Machiavelli's The Prince. The prince will always be to win over to himself with the greatest ease those men who in the beginning of a principality had been enemies. The principality in this case is the campaign. So the prince will always be to win over to himself with the greatest ease those men who in the beginning of a principality had been enemies, and who are of such quality that to maintain themselves, they need somewhere to lean. In other words, they've just been decimated. They've just been wiped out. The prince has just made mincemeat of them. Associating with the prince is the only hope they have of staying relevant in the principality, i.e. politics. These people are all the more forced to serve the prince faithfully, as they know it is more necessary for them to cancel out with deeds the sinister opinion one has taken of them. In other words, they have to prove it every day. They have to prove their loyalty every day, not just saying it. They've got to prove it by deeds. They've got to show every day. In other words, Trump will own them. In sense of loyalty to the agenda, fealty to the cause. And so the prince always extracts more use from men who had been his enemies than from those who, while serving him with too much security, neglect his affairs. Meaning, you go out and get the people that were with you from the beginning, and their motivation for wanting to be with you is different from the guys you've vanquished. He goes on to say in the next paragraph that the problem with picking the people who were your most ardent supporters is they're never happy. They think they should have gotten more. Whoever gets press secretary thinks they should get a policy position somewhere, like in the cabinet, or people that get secretary of agriculture think, no, I should be state. And they're always thinking Trump doesn't see them the way he should see them. They're always dissatisfied. Not always. I mean, look, these are works in human nature, but this is the Machiavellian theory, is that your friends, you bring them in, they always think they were the most loyal. Every one of them does. Every one of them thinks they are the most deserving. Every one of them thinks that they need to be the most rewarded. Here's the next paragraph. And again, I'll translate as necessary. And since the matter requires it, I do not want to leave out a reminder to princes who have newly taken a state through internal support within it. Meaning, I don't want to leave out you people that have just won an election, that they consider well what cause moved those who supported them to support them. In other words, Trump must figure out why the Newts, the Giulianis, the Christies, and pick any name you want, he must figure out why they supported him. Very, very important. If it is not natural affection, if they supported him for reasons other than they genuinely like him, if it's only because those supporters were not content with the state of affairs beforehand, he will be able to keep them his friends with trouble and great difficulty, because it is impossible for the prince to make them happy. And while reviewing well the cause of this, with examples drawn from ancient and modern things, he will see that it is much easier to gain as friends to himself men who were happy with the state beforehand and therefore were his enemies, than those who, because they were not content with the state, were his friends. They gave him support in seizing the state, but their motivations must always be ascertained. Why did they support? Was it to be chosen? Was it to be on TV? Was it to get close to the seat of power? Was it, or was it genuine? All of these things the prince must ascertain in deciding which of his supporters and enemies to surround himself with. You can agree with it or not. You can think it's full of it or not. To me, it's karma. I'm sitting here last night, well, I'm sitting there, as I was in my library at home last night. I got this email, and I'd been thinking about it anyway, and then it all comes together by happenstance when I checked the Powerline blog today. Let's take a brief time out. We'll come back and continue after this. Don't go away. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have El Rushbo, serving humanity simply by showing up. Grab audio soundbite number 2. You might remember the discussion we had on this program after the Hamilton cast dissed Mike Pence when he was in the audience for a performance. Last night on Tucker Carlson tonight, the Fox News Channel, he spoke with a law professor at George Washington University by the name of Jeffrey Rosen. And he had an op-ed in the New York Times, States' Rights for the Left. Everybody's worried about how does the left deal with Trump? What do they do? Democrats have been emaciated. They have no power in the states anymore. They don't have any control. No governorships are very few, no state legislatures. And everybody's, how are the Democrats going to battle Trump? This guy had an op-ed in the New York Times that Tucker Carlson wanted to talk to him about. And so the question is, my entire lifetime, the left has derided the idea of states' rights because they're big federal government people. They want the states to be totally subservient to the federal government. Here you come saying the Democrats need to start advocating for states' rights. What are you talking about?
From the time of the founding until the New Deal, it was the Democrats who were the party of small government, of Jefferson, of farmers and producers. And it was Republicans who were the party of big government and Hamilton. I thought Rush Limbaugh was correct to call out the cast of Hamilton for, attacking Donald Trump, because as Limbaugh said, Donald Trump is Hamilton, the same way that a lot of Democrats have embraced Hamilton. So this old Jeffersonian tradition has been forgotten to a large degree.
Well, now, when I saw that on the audio soundbite roster, I said, I needed to go back and check exactly what he heard me say. So I went back to it. It was November 21st. And I remember it well. The cast of Hamilton, we later learned, had not even registered. Well, they hadn't voted. I think only a couple of them had ever registered to vote back in 2006. And they lecture Pence from the stage after performance, telling Pence they're very scared, they're very worried because Trump doesn't seem to respect gay marriage, the gay lifestyle, transgender choices of bathrooms and stuff. And Trump's just a great danger. And here they are extolling the virtues of Hamilton. And I pointed out that when you get down to it, Donald Trump is Hamilton. Did you know that Alexander Hamilton was an immigration hawk? He was. He thought there should be a test to make sure only certain kinds of people were allowed entry to emigrate to the United States. Here these people portray it. And I made the point, they don't even know who Hamilton is. They know their lines, and they know their press clippings. But they don't even know the guy that they are celebrating and lionizing here, Alexander Hamilton, because Donald Trump in many ways is Alexander Hamilton. Thomas Jefferson, this law professor is right. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams did not like Hamilton at all. They were agrarians, farmers, big believers in states' rights, and Alexander Hamilton didn't want anybody getting in a country he didn't approve of. Founded the New York Post, born out of wedlock in the Caribbean, grew up in St. Kitts. In modern-day terms, he came from a broken family. Was in the Dutch West Indies where he grew up. But it was just uncanny how similar to Alexander Hamilton in many ways, not all, but many ways Donald Trump is. And this Doomcoff cast pontificating, I mean, it was clear ignorance on parade. And it was arrogance and it was condescending. They were preaching as though they're the experts. It's like all actors who play roles. They think they become experts in whatever person or situation they're portraying, and in many cases, they don't know jack. Back after this. And welcome back. Okay, folks, let's now head to the Donald Trump Air Force One tweet. And as with most everything that you see in the drive-by media, there's much, much more to this than meets the eye. There's much, much more to this than it might appear. Let's start with the Trumpster himself in New York City in the lobby of Trump Tower. He came out of the elevator and sought out the media for this. He was not being peppered with questions. He came out of there. I watched it. He came out of that elevator and walked up to where the bank of cameras or microphones, or maybe some journalist was there. He walked up and purposely made the point here that the Air Force One replacement order is just out of control and we need to cancel it.
The plane is totally out of control. It's going to be over $4 billion. It's for Air Force One program. And I think it's ridiculous. I think Boeing is doing a little bit of a number. We want Boeing to make a lot of money, but not that much money.
All right, now, there's some things that I was reading my tech blogs on this today, and I just love this. Because they're typical young whippersnappers. They think they know everything, and that Trump is this raging idiot. And so they cite all the stats of what a Boeing 747 costs without factoring in the modifications necessary to make it an Air Force One. They don't know that there are two of them that are being bought. I mean, it's just funny. So here's the deal, as it's currently understood. We're talking about the Boeing 747-8. That is the largest version of the Boeing 747. They are not selling well. Boeing has had to reduce production because orders for this plane are not what they had hoped. As with all Air Force Ones, there are two, and both travel on every presidential trip. One is either a decoy or a backup, and the other is the primary. But they both fly, because if one of them has a mechanical, you can't put the president on anything other than this airplane. Trump cannot fly his own plane as president. I mean, he may try, but it doesn't have anywhere near the security, the avoidance technology for attacks, missile attacks and so forth, shielding for various kinds of other attacks to disrupt communications. Air Force One has a legitimate, fully outfitted operating room on board. If the president is shot, rather than take him to a hospital, if it's close by, they'll take him back to Air Force One. And they can even do some surgery they wouldn't want to at flight, but if they had to get out of there real quick, if they were, they could. I mean, Trump's plane simply doesn't have what the law requires for the president to be kept safe and secure. Plus, it's not big enough. Now, some of the naysayers here say, well, Trump's just mad because he's not going to get to fly on it, because these two 747-8s are not going to be ready for service till 2024. So the tech blogs think Trump is just mad because they're not going to get them built soon enough for him to use. That's not what's going on here. Now, the actual money involved. Trump says that the contract is $4 billion, and that's just out of control. That's just irresponsible. We're wasting money here. Well, the actual contract details, as best I've been able to come up with, are these. There are 3 contracts to get this whole production going. And the first 3, which are the down payment, totals $169 million. The 2 brand new Air Force Ones, according to Pentagon estimates that have been made public. Now, there could be hidden costs, other things that haven't been made public, but the public cost of the brand new 2 Air Force Ones is $165 billion. That's $2.5 billion short of Trump's $4 billion that he says Boeing is going to be paid. The Air Force announced this plan 2 years ago. They promised to use the most proven and advanced technologies and commercially certified equipment to keep costs under control. Remember now, this for 2 airplanes, not just one, and $165 billion is the published cost. However, there's much, much more going on here, ladies and gentlemen, than meets the eye. The first item of interest is that the Pentagon, Bob Woodward at the Washington Post, has an exclusive that the Pentagon has buried evidence of $125 billion in bureaucratic waste. 125. This is not the $600 toilet seats. This is $125 billion being given to people. and payments to support the existence of a bureaucracy that really has nothing to do with the defense of the country. It's just a bureaucracy supposedly out of control. Now, we've got to take this under advisement, too, because it's the Washington Post, it's Bob Woodward, and the left automatically hates the Department of Defense. They despise them because that's where we go to war, and that's where the weapons of war are. And you know leftists and weapons of war, from guns on up to nuclear missiles, they just hate it all. They don't like it, and they've been trying to cut the Pentagon budget for years. It's interesting that this story comes out as Obama is on the way out, even though it's been researched for a year. Isn't it interesting the Washington Post never published a story about bureaucratic waste at all for 8 years under Obama? And here we are on the verge of Trump being inaugurated, and here comes this massive story of Pentagon waste. But we'll throw it in the mix because Trump is making the same case. $4 billion for 2 airplanes, it's ridiculous. We can't pay Boeing that much. There's also, ladies and gentlemen, additional information. In addition to the Pentagon and this $125 billion, are you aware that Boeing donated 1 million? Whoa. Is it 1 million or 1? Boeing were huge underwriters of the Clinton Foundation. Boeing paid Bill Clinton a number of millions of dollars to go out there and do speeches. It could well be that Boeing is engaging in business overseas that Trump doesn't approve of, that he doesn't like. He thinks Boeing ought to bring some of that business, some of those jobs back. It could also be that Trump is simply negotiating. This is what he does. If you've read The Art of the Deal, you know that he will publicly negotiate and he will call out the people he's negotiating against. And it could well be that by calling Boeing out and claiming they're charging $4 billion, he's negotiating with them in public. There's a whole lot here. And the drive-bys are just treating this as the tweet and the tweet alone. Look at Trump. He's out there ripping Boeing, $4 billion, Air Force One. And he can't. These are the kinds of things that the experts are brought on TV to say, this isn't done. This is not what happens in transitions. This is not presidential at all. We know this is embarrassing. The president doesn't even know what he's doing. These kind of discussions of contracts should be kept behind closed doors and private matters, and so we're not airing in public like this. I don't think you can rule out the fact that Boeing was dancing big and riding hard with the Clintons. The amount of money that Boeing donated to the Clintons, I had it right here in my stack, and I must have thrown it away thinking it was a dupe of something that wasn't. But I'll find it during the break here. But Boeing and the Clintons have been inseparable. A humongous amount of money that Boeing donated and expected Hillary to win. That's part and parcel. Boeing underwrote the Hillary presidential campaign by virtue of this campaign donation. Well, a charitable donation, whatever, to the Clinton Crime Family Foundation, and hiring Bill to do speeches all over the world for $200,000 a pop. So it's much more going on here than anybody knows. Other people are accusing Trump in his ignorance of attacking Boeing's stock price. And it's just unseemly. It's not right. It's not fair. One thing people are going to have to understand about Trump, he's not stupid. He's not a bull in a china shop. You may end up disagreeing with him profoundly. You may end up not liking him at all before this. I don't know. But he's not dumb. And he's not ignorant. And it's not that he doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing and is doing it for a reason. He's doing this on purpose. There is an objective to this. The left just can't help themselves, though. They have to cast this guy. They have to portray him as somebody that's a walking mental midget that literally has no idea what he's done here by winning the presidency, has no idea how to talk, has no idea how to behave. And they continue to make the mistake of plugging him into their model. They're plugging him into what they think an accomplished politician is. And he's not that. He's never been that. And he's not going to be that. He doesn't want to be a politician, successful or not. He is president, and he's going to lead this country in the ways that he's being very open and honest about. Anyway, let me take a brief time out here. I'll find these exact Clinton numbers after this and get back to you. We'll get started on the phones here fairly quickly as well, so sit tight. Okay, here's the numbers, the Boeing numbers with the Clintons. By the way, also keep in mind, Boeing is in the middle of selling planes to Iran. Let me remind you about this. Remember the Corker bill, folks. Senator Corker, Tennessee, came up with a bill during the time Obama was negotiating a nuclear deal with the Iranians. And the Corker bill was presented to us as the way the Republicans in the Senate were going to keep Obama honest and make sure that he didn't do anything nefarious. It was a way of getting around the Senate having to vote on this as a treaty. It actually green-lighted Obama to do whatever kind of deal he wanted without the Senate being involved. That's what ticked everybody off. The Republicans told us that the Senate was not going to invoke the treaty clause and therefore require 60-some-odd votes in the Senate for passage of Obama's deal. Instead, they did the Corker deal. And the Corker bill was going to be a substitute way of the Republicans making sure that Obama dotted all the T's and crossed all the I's. And I'm trying to think of another word for lie. We were misled. The Corker bill was actually a green light for Obama and the deal. And we later came to find out why. We know that the Republican Party has become a pro-amnesty party because of donors. Republican Party, as we discussed for the past number of years and really intensely during last year's campaign, Republican Party became more devoted to its donors, i.e. money, than to its voters and their desires and ideas. And we couldn't figure out, why are the Republicans, of all people, facilitating a nuclear deal with Iran? Why would the Republicans want their fingerprints on a deal that allows the world's state-sponsored terrorism to nuke up? Well, it turns out it was Boeing. Not totally, but one of the reasons. Remember this, Mr. Snerdley? The Iranian national airline is essentially falling apart. And because of sanctions and freezing of their money in our banks, they haven't been able to modernize any of their infrastructure, including purchase new aircraft. So the Corker bill was about getting the sanctions lifted and approving Obama's deal because Boeing wanted to go sell the Iranians new commercial airliners. And they couldn't do that with sanctions in place. They couldn't make a deal. And so the Republicans were instrumental here in making it possible for Boeing. And Boeing had donated to Republicans to make this possible. You can't throw this here. You know how Trump is talking about the Iranian deal. He hates it. And don't think he doesn't know about all this. You know, Trump going out tweeting about $4 billion in Boeing and a new Air Force One. There's so much more behind this than what it's being portrayed. So there's a possibility here that Trump is really irritated at Boeing for helping facilitate the Iranian nuclear deal or not. I mean, I'm throwing out possibilities here, but I'm telling you something's going on. Now, here's the story of Boeing and the Clintons. In 2010, 2 months, you ready for this? 2 months after Hillary went to Moscow to broker a $3.7 billion trade deal with Russia, Boeing announced a $900,000 contribution to the Clinton Foundation. In July of 2012, months after the State Department helped Boeing secure major deals in Indonesia and Saudi Arabia, Boeing sponsored a speech by Bill Clinton for which he was paid $250,000. And Boeing also gave Hillary $166,835 in 2016 for her campaign. So Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, had helped Boeing broker 2 deals, one in Russia, $3.7 billion deal, which got them a $900,000 contribution to the Clinton Foundation. And in 2012, Boeing hired Bill to do a speech for $250,000. It's chump change compared to what they've been sending Hillary. Plus, they sent her about $170,000 in campaign donations. Trump knows all this. He's very much aware of the cronyism that's been going on. And now he's out saying... Hang on, folks. Somebody's calling me here. It's a wrong number. I heard this. What the heck is that? Sounded like a tech malfunction. I looked over and I thought it was my phone. Did that sound like a phone ringing to you? All right. I did not lose my place. You thought it was some tech snafu, too, wondering what the hell was going on. I'm sure you thought, what are you doing wrong in there that I'm going to get mad at? So Trump is very much aware of all this and goes out and publicly says, we're throwing $4 billion away from this Air Force One plane. And he said, tear it up, cancel the order. Well, it's a little late to cancel the order. But I'm telling you, folks, there is much, much more going on here than one little Trump tweet would indicate. And I think you should use this as a little bit of a teachable moment. Trump is not the dummy. He's not the ignoramus. He's not the inexperienced bull in a china shop that they want you to believe he is. And as we've just demonstrated here with this one little 140-character tweet about canceling the order for the new Air Force Ones because Boeing is charging too many. Look at what all the backstory is. Boeing in Iran, Boeing in Russia, Boeing with the Clintons. This may not sit well with Trump. So point is, there's always stuff going on behind a Trump tweet or a Trump story that you don't know. Trump is not a surface individual. There's more depth to him than anybody wants to acknowledge here. Quick timeout. Back in a moment. You could buy 65 EIB-1 aircraft. 65 of them for $4 billion. Now, they're about 60, 65, depending on, well, actually, that'd be a G650. But you could buy between 61 and 65 of them, depending on how you chose to outfit them and paint them and so forth. It's a lot of money. Anyway, we have to take a time out, folks. We'll be back. We will continue, I promise, or get to your phone calls. El Quico. Meeting and surpassing all audience What? No. Look, I'm just saying. There's much more to this than meets the eye when it comes to Trump and Boeing. He's just not out there tweeting for the hell of it. If you put it all together, folks, it makes perfect sense. Trump is not happy with the things that have been going on in this country, domestically, foreign policy. He doesn't like the Iranian nuke deal. He doesn't like any of Obama's trade deals. He doesn't like much of our foreign policy. And Boeing is in the thick of it. Boeing is right smack dab in the middle of many things. And so this tweet that Trump has put out there today is not just an idle, Trump's got to say something, he's bored kind of thing. There's obviously something very meaningful behind it. I tried to explain the details in the previous hour. Anyway, welcome back. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Telephone number, if you want to join us, is 800-282-2882. And if you want to send an email, and I check those. We get a lot of them, but I search the subject line. I have a system. I've found a way. Usually sometimes I pick duds, but for the most part, scanning the subject line, I end up finding the gold. I mean, there's so many thousands of emails, like 75,000 in the course of a 24-hour day, and most of that in these 3 hours. That's not including the spam. So anyway, that address is elrushbo@eibnet.us. Okay, let's talk about Trump and this Secretary of State position here. And as always, let's measure and compare what Trump is doing with all of the hysteria and unhinged paranoia that preceded it. And by that, I mean Trump wins. And even on election night, the Clintons and the Democrats and the media thought she was going to win, even as late as 9:30. So they're shell-shocked. They have just been obliterated. Obama's policies have been repudiated. They have lost. They don't have a bench. I mean, Joe Biden announcing he's going to run for president in 2020 is considered big news in the Democrat Party. He'd be 78 years old. They don't have a bench. They don't have any presence. You know, they only have the governorship and state legislature in 4 states. They've just been wiped out. And so they are in panic. They are hysterical. They're unhinged. And here comes Trump, who is not political in the sense of being a politician. And his transition begins, and he starts acting like he's already president. And they're offended by that. And then they say, this is so unpresidential. This is so unseemly. This is just beyond the pale. This is unacceptable. This is not how it's done. This is talking to Chinese and taking a call from Taiwan. No, this is not how they're just beside themselves here with the way Trump is violating every bit of behavioral protocol that they think exists, okay? And then the names start getting bandied about for Secretary of State. And he starts filling various cabinet positions somewhat quickly. He surrounds himself with his inner circle of advisors relatively quickly. And the first roster of names for Secretary of State are all friends and supporters. And then it expands. And the friends and supporters seem to fall out of favor. And new people start showing up, like Mitt Romney. And Trump goes to dinner with Romney and spends a lot of time saying nice things about Romney. Romney was dead set against him the entire campaign. And then other names got like John Huntsman, who's got ties to the Obama regime. He was one of the CHICOM ambassadors at one time. He's also from Utah, Mormon, in competition, in a sense, with the Romney family. Throw other names in there. He picks a Secretary of Defense rather quickly. He's picked Ben Carson for housing and urban development. But the list of names for Secretary of State is still expanding, and Trump doesn't appear anywhere near making a choice. We've got David Petraeus thrown in. We've got John Bolton. Consultations with Dr. Kissinger are taking place. In fact, Trump is leaving Trump Tower today to go over to talk with Dr. Kissinger at Dr. Kissinger's office. The one guy who doesn't make the trek to Trump Tower is Dr. Kissinger. Trump's going over to see him. Got some sound bites on that coming up that are very funny. Anyway, have you noticed in all of this, have you noticed all the opinion pieces complimenting Trump on the seriousness of his search? No, I haven't seen those either. There aren't any. But how else can you interpret this? I mean, on the one hand, here they're unhinged and they are hysterical and they're paranoid. I think Trump has no idea what he's doing. It's scary, embarrassing. And yet Trump is being deliberative. He's being thorough. He is taking his time. It's obvious that he has a foreign policy, and it is obvious that he's looking for the right person to implement it. Now, the unhinged, hysterical types would try to tell you that Trump doesn't know anything, and he doesn't have a foreign policy, and he's talking to all these people essentially to be educated and to be schooled, because he doesn't even, for example, he probably wouldn't know what the subcontinent is. And he wouldn't know where Micronesia is. And they probably have to tell him where India is and how Iceland isn't ice, it's green, and how Greenland isn't green, it's ice. They're probably telling him all that. That's how stupid they think he is. They're going to continue to make that mistake, by the way. They will never be able to admit that Trump is smart or smarter than they are, because they are the smartest people in the room. And Trump doesn't have the pedigree, he doesn't come to the right places. They're never going to come to grips with this. And Trump knows that, and I think he's going to be toying with them like my cat toys with little geckos that it finds in the house. You ought to see that. I have to rescue geckos at least 2 or 3 a week. You know what? I was sitting there, I was watching something on TV the other night, and all of a sudden, it didn't register immediately. But there's this racket going on the sofa right behind me, and I figured it was just the cat, Allie, trying to get comfortable behind. But it kept going, and finally she started headbutting me. So I said, okay, what the hell? And I got up and turned around. There was a dead gecko. She had brought a dead gecko, and it was in the back of the sofa, just inches from my head. She was proudly showing the thing off. I said, Allie, would you have to kill it? They're our friends. They kill the insects. But she doesn't know that. She brought me a present. And I love those little geckos. I call them little buddies. But she toys with them. I can tell what she's found one because she starts meowing like crazy if it has gone someplace that she can't get. She goes insane. And that's how these people are with Trump. I mean, they don't know what's hit them yet. He's being very deliberate with his Secretary of State search. He's not trying to impress anybody with the speed of his picks. He's not trying to impress anybody with trying to show them he knows what they think he doesn't know. He's not trying to meet any kind of artificial deadline. He had an initial list of people and apparently wasn't satisfied. He keeps conducting serious interviews with really serious people and an expanding list of them. He's parading a bunch of people in and out of Trump Tower. I think most of the people parading in and out of there are for show, to tell you the truth. I really do. I think Trump's having more fun than you and I can possibly imagine. I know he is, folks. I used to do the Rush to Excellence tour the first 2 years of this program back in 1989, actually 89, 88, 89, and 90. And when he's on stage, he's got another one coming up at Fayetteville, North Carolina. But that last Thursday night in Cincinnati, I'm telling you, he is having more fun than any politician has ever been thought to be having fun. He is literally immersed in enjoyment and joy. He is eating it up. And I think this endless parade of people parading in and out of Trump Tower, I think a lot of it is just a show. The people involved don't know it. I mean, everybody being brought in there, they want to be seen. They're stopping for the cameras, and some of them are walking to the microphones. And they want to be seen. They want the news out that they have been summoned to Trump Tower. It's the red carpet in reverse. He's rolling out the red carpet. But they're all making the trek to see him. The only one is Dr. Kissinger. I told the president-elect that the only place I'm going to go is to Le Cirque. And if he wants to see me, to meet me there or come to my office. And that's it. Trump's going to his office. Well, no. But the contrast here to what everybody told us to expect versus what's happening is stark. And even Al Gore. I'm wondering, how did this happen? Who called who on this? Is Al Gore out there sensing that the reason I think it's Al Gore is because whenever Gore shows up, it freezes. When Gore shows up, it's a snowstorm. It's a blizzard. And lo and behold, here comes Gore to New York yesterday to try to get a meeting with Ivanka and Trump and warn them that they're wrong on climate change. And we're going to have the biggest blast of cold air swamping the entire country with exception of Florida starting tomorrow. We are going to have this gigantic cold air mass come down from Alaska because of the jet stream. They've been warning us about this for a week, and it's actually the models on this were right. We're going to be 20 to 30 degrees below normal in the Midwest, the upper Midwest. It's not going to hit New York. I think it may miss New York. We're not going to get it here either. You know what the feel-like temperature at noon yesterday was? It was 90 yesterday here, the feel-like. It was. It was really, it was good. The humidity was back up. Oh, we just love it. Anyway, Gore shows up, and he brings with him this massive, unseasonable, unprecedented cold wave. So I'm thinking it's Trump that called, or it's Gore that called Trump. And, the environmental. You ought to see my tech blogs. They're all of a sudden, they're withdrawing all allegations and accusations against Trump. Maybe Trump has seen the light. Maybe Trump's actually going to get it on this. Maybe with Al Gore going in to visit, maybe we were wrong about Trump. I'm going to tell you the fastest way for me to abandon all this is if they sign on to this. I'm just telling you right now, folks, I can't look the other way at that, and I won't. There's no way on earth. But I'm going to wait, see what happens. I think a lot of this is a show, and a lot of this is Al Gore wants to talk to me. What about? Fine, bring him in. They'll talk to him. Yes, sir, 3 bags full. Gore leaves, thinks he's mattered. He's on the board of Apple, too. There's all kinds of stuff behind the scenes of every one of these meetings. Al Gore's a board member at Apple. Trump's got plans for Apple. Who knows? They might not have even been talking climate change. Everybody thinks climate change because Gore. We don't know. But I can just tell you, Trump's loving every minute of this. Let's take a time out. We'll come back. We will continue. Start on the phones right after this. So I just checked the email. Mr. Limbaugh, are you going to go to Trump Tower? Have you been asked to come? No, folks. They only call me when they get in trouble. And now to the phone, Suzanne, Blunts Creek, North Carolina. Welcome to the EIB Network. Hello.
Good day, Rush. This is an early Christmas present. Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's great to have you out there.
Okay. In reference to Giuliani, excuse me, I have lost my voice and regained it, but 2 weeks ago he was on Fox and Friends in the morning, and the topic of Secretary of State came up, and a lot of names, his included, and he leaned forward, smiled, and said, "I'm the best qualified." And as soon as he said that, I thought, oh my, if Trump's watching this, he's not going to appreciate that eagerness.
Oh, let me tell you something, Suzanne. Trump watches TV.
Oh, sure.
He watches so much TV, he thinks certain things are popular that aren't. For example, Morning Joe, they got no viewers. He may be the only one. But because he watches, he thinks everybody does. Nobody does. He sees everything on TV. He does not delegate people to watch TV for him. So I'm sure he saw that, and you're probably right. It didn't sit well. He's the one that's going to decide who's qualified or not. And I'm sure that put him in an antenna. If that accident, did you actually see Rudy say that? Or was he joking or was he serious?
He looked serious. He leaned forward, he smiled, and he said, "But I'm the best qualified."
Well, look, let's treat it both ways. Let's say he was dead serious in saying so, and his thought process: look, Trump likes decisiveness, and I'm going to show Trump I'm decisive. But Trump ought not need to see anything from Rudy. I mean, he knows him well. He can obviously trust him. So if you go on TV and you say, obviously, I'm the most qualified, you're kind of putting Trump in a dangerous position. I mean, you're making it look like the decision is kind of being taken out of Trump's hands or being forced or what have you. It's Trump that's supposed to decide who's best qualified or not.
I was wondering if Trump has taken a step back and is looking at all of these people who are so sure of themselves, and he's not talking about them. I do see Newt Gingrich still in the news, and he's still supportive, but I haven't seen.
Well, but Newt doesn't. Newt, that's a different story. Let me.
Well, I know. I mean, he's not in the running for the Secretary of State. He's already said he, But,
right. He wants to be the grand strategist. He wants to be the grand wizard behind the curtain.
That's fine.
He wants to be the wizard of Trump.
That's fine.
Now, let me ask you: did you hear the first segment of the program today, Susan?
Oh yes.
Okay. Well, I think that segment gave you the answer you're looking for, or at least a potential answer as to what Trump is doing. And because if you're observing here that the expansion of people, the list that's growing, is largely people that didn't support him. I mean, these new candidates are people that did not support him. And so people, why is this? I mean, why people that don't understand this, people who voted for Trump think that that Romney and some of these others, that Trump ought to see him as the enemy. He ought to see him as the enemy. These guys do not have his best interests at heart. Yet Trump's talking to him. Yet Trump might choose one of them. And I was trying to provide a reason why that might happen in the opening segment of the program.
Yeah. As soon as I heard Romney's name, I automatically thought, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
Yeah, well, it's a version of that, but it's here's the thing about that is Trump doing this instinctively, or is it a thought out and strategic move? And that would argue against it being Machiavellian. Machiavellian is instinctive, and you can still be Machiavellian in your strategic thinking, but you could, yeah. Hey, look, time is dwindling here, and I need to ask you, Suzanne, would you like a new iPhone, a 7 or 7 Plus?
Oh, mercy. Well, let me ask you, I have a quick question. To if I forego and offer that to the next veteran who calls, or is that redundant with the next veteran?
Well, the problem with that is anybody can call and say they're a veteran. You take the phone and personally give it to the veteran. You can find
You are so sweet. Whatever you.
Okay, I'm going to send you an iPhone 7 Plus that will work on any cell carrier. Since that way you'll be able to give it to any veteran you want.
Oh, thank you. You are so precious, and thank you for all you do.
I'm happy to do it, and I can't just hang on so we can get an address or we can FedEx it to you. FedEx is busy this time of year, and sometimes they don't make the next day delivery. But everything that we've sent out so far has made it the next day out. Yours probably will too. But just now, remember here, Suzanne, it'll be unlocked. It'll work on any cell phone carrier in the world, and it does not have a SIM card in it. You tell the veteran that. We'll be back after this. Let me give you some little stats here on Al Gore, because I just find this juicy as it can be. You know, there's so much hypocrisy on the left, and they never get called on it. They get away with every act of hypocrisy in which they engage. When Al Gore ran for president in 2000, he filed a public financial disclosure report that revealed his net worth was somewhere around $700,000 in the year 2000 running for president. Oh, I got an email. Why do you pronounce his name one word, Al Gore? Good question. To understand that, you have to have been listening here back in the Clinton days. We used to do funny parodies of Clinton as Count Dracula and his trusty sidekick, Al Gore. Real name was Igor, but we called him Al Gore. And Clinton was sending Al Gore around to raise people's taxes and sucking their blood and this kind of thing. So it's just stuck with me, Al Gore. Trusted aide, you know, the doofus lackey, the old bad guys. You ever notice every bad guy has his number one aide is an idiot. Always ends up getting him caught. Anyway, so he's just stuck. It's Al Gore, not Al Gore. But that's why. Anyway, when Al Gore ran for president in 2000, financial disclosure report that he filed, net worth $700,000. Today, in 2016, Al Gore's net worth is over $172 million. Now, he lost the presidency in 2000. What did he do? What has Al Gore done in 16 years to go from $700,000 to $172 million? A lot of that money, by the way, is oil money. You remember when Al Gore bought this worthless little cable channel and turned it into something? What did he call it? Turned it into Current TV. And the brilliant programming idea of Current TV was home videos. Young leftist activists could make home videos of all the things they're doing to make the world a better place and send them into Al Gore. Al Gore would televise them on Current TV. Well, it flopped. Trump may have watched it, but if he did, he was the only one, because Trump watches a lot of TV. Al Gore sold Current TV. Are you ready for it? Wait for it. He sold it to the government of Qatar. The government of Qatar, which is filthy oil money. And they turned it into Al Jazeera West or Al Jazeera North or whatever it was. So Al Gore, he buys this thing for a pittance. And I think he sold it for something like $65 or $70 million to the government of Qatar, which is a filthy oil potentate state in the Middle East. Now, you would think Al Gore hates oil because he's a big climate change guy, and those guys think oil is the greatest evil in the world. But Al Gore, in a gigantic act of hypocrisy, has profited to the moon because of Qatar. He also has something like, 100,000 shares of Apple. And that stake is roughly now the Apple price is 100 and let me check what the Apple price is. I'll do some quick math on this. Yeah, but let's look at what the Apple price is here. You do some when this thing. Okay, they're at 100. Figure $110. Multiply $110. Divide 110. No, 100,000 times 110. See what you get, and that'll tell us what his. That's what it's currently worth. Anyway? So he's up there around $173 million, and he's just carbon footprint is just out the wazoo. And it's just one hypocritical existence after another. Back to the phones we go. Ryan, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Hi, great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hi, Rush. It's a great pleasure to be on.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, look, I don't think that the critics of Donald Trump I don't think they're following through on their own reasoning that he's this narcissistic, egotistical businessman who makes all of his money through his name to its logical conclusion. And that logical conclusion is that he has every reason to succeed, because I can't imagine anything worse to him than waking up in the morning and realizing that he's a failed brand, because his brand to him is everything.
And so your theory is
that he's going to try to get it right, because if he doesn't, he stands more to lose after he is president, because his business.
Well, it's an interesting. I happen to think that the actual greatest fear that Trump critics have is that what he's doing is going to work. I think you've got to put yourself in the position of the political class. Both parties. The establishment of the lobbying industry, the donor class, the political class, the media, you put them all in that lump in which they live. And there's one way of doing things. It's their way. And Trump is not doing anything the way they do it. And they're paranoid and they're offended and they're acting scared and they're acting arrogant and they're making fun of him. He doesn't know what he's doing. This business with China and Taiwan. He's embarrassing all of us. Deep down, the greatest fear they've got, and it's an outgrowth of the fear they had during the campaign, too. I mean, Trump blew up the way you campaign. Trump defied everything that says you lose if you do it. He did everything that would guarantee most people in his shoes to lose. He didn't lose, he won. He's rewritten every one of these rules, and they're living, I think, in paranoid fear.
And they're following Rush around the world. The leftist governments that only exist based upon creating a population that's dependent upon it, they're falling all around the planet.
That's true, too. Well, forget why. You're right about that. But they're failing left and right. But they have done everything they can to hide that, to obscure that. They've done everything they can, in fact, to make it look like what they are is smart and reasonable and just give us more time. These techniques of ours take a little while to accomplish, establish this global network of this and that and the other thing. It's not easy to do. We're the only ones qualified to do it. They're failing everywhere. They're failing in Cuba. They're failing in Venezuela. The Chi-Coms had to modify and moderate. Otherwise, they'd be bombing out as well. The Chi-Coms, if they hadn't incorporated some market principles, would be in as bad a shape as any of these other places were. Russia is still on the come, but all of these, the European Union, the Western socialist democracies, they're not working, and the people are voting them out, and they're scared to death of being exposed. They're scared to death of being exposed as the frauds they are. I mean, look at this. I think this was true during the campaign. Is that one of the things that I think energized and animated, if you will, the Never Trumpers was they viewed themselves as the sole proprietors and the sole owners of quote-unquote conservatism. They alone were the arbiters. They alone were the ones to determine what it was, to define it. They alone were the ones who would say who and who isn't a conservative. They alone would be the ultimate authority, and thus how to implement it and how not to implement it, and what it is and what it isn't. And by virtue of that, they had in their minds the lock. The only way conservatives can win was what they said to do and how to do it. So here comes Trump, and he's exposing so far all of these know-it-alls. I don't care what party, I don't care what ideology. He's exposing them all as frauds to one degree or another. Well, not all. I don't want to broad brush here, but enough of them that they are scared to death, exactly as you say, that if he succeeds, they've been exposed. And your theory is he's going to succeed because of his big ego and his brand, and he just doesn't tolerate losing. He doesn't tolerate failure, and winning is why he does what he does, and you don't see anything about that that's about to change, right?
I can't imagine a bigger nightmare for Donald Trump than waking up and realizing that history has reflected upon him as a failed brand, because it's his everything.
Yeah, there may be elements in the media that'll do that no matter what, as they continue to do now. They're continuing to say Trump doesn't know what he's doing, even after the Taiwan-China circumstance. All the experts said, well, it may have been thought out after all. Their first take was they couldn't have thought about this. I mean, if they'd have thought about it, this shows how stupid they are. It had to be knee-jerk. We'll have to cut them some slack. Then they figured out it was planned. And when they learned that it was planned, they said, well, Trump's not smart enough to plan it. It has to be one of his aides. It has to be one of his advisors. Trump couldn't possibly. So you're going to have a whole industry. Trump could end up being the most popular, best president ever. And if the current regime of drive-bys survives whatever number of years he serves, they're going to write that he was a failure. No, just on principle. Look, I'm nearing the end of time for you here. Ryan, what kind of iPhone do you want, 7 or 7 Plus?
7 Plus would be great, Rush.
All right. What carrier?
I have AT&T.
What color?
Do you still have the jet black?
I do.
That would be great.
All right. Okay. So it's going to be it's a world phone. It'll work on any carrier. It does not have a SIM card in it, so it'll work AT&T, Sprint, Verizon, T-Mobile, you name it. It'll work there. Even if you take it to China, it'll work there. You just have to get the right SIM card. Hang on. We'll get your address, and you'll have it tomorrow. Back after this, folks. Don't go away. There are you. Welcome back, Rush Limbaugh, with half my brain tied behind my back. Just to make it fair, here's Bill in Atlanta. You're next, sir. It's a delight to have you with us. Hi.
Rush, it's a delight to be on. It's 27 years of ditto with you, so thank you very much.
Well, you've been a long time. I appreciate that. I really do.
Oh, yes. I think it's absolute insanity what we're spending for the Secret Service and its budget in its entirety. And then you talking about new Air Force Ones just sent me over the top. If I had a nickel for every time I wanted to call you, I'd probably have a G7 by now. But this one sent me over the top. So I cannot understand. It's absolute insanity. And for someone to at least, and again, I know it's going to happen anyways. Maybe it'll only be $3 billion instead of $4 billion. It's still ridiculous. Washington and Adams rode horseback to Washington, and now we got to cart the president around. They're just a person. We're all just people. That we are replaceable when it comes down to running our government, and we do it every 4 years. And I just can't understand.
You think we go way overboard in security for the president?
Oh my gosh! If you looked at the Secret Service budget, where it grew from when Kennedy was president to where we are now, you would be exponentially craziness is what it would be, I believe.
Well, I don't know how many takers you're going to get on that.
Oh my gosh! You think?
Kennedy is dead.
Well, no, Well, but I mean that's what causes all
we are reactive here.
Yeah,
and Squeaky Fromm took a couple shots at Gerald Ford.
Yeah,
and so they ramped up again.
And
we don't know, what attempts are.
But at some point, don't we have to understand that we're there? It's one person, and we just can't.
I know where you're coming from. You're saying this. We're all human beings. How can one of us, even if he's elected president, be that much more important? It's just not possible.
Thank you.
Somebody could step in there and assume the job, and we would all go on like nothing happened.
Yes.
And so it's, the argument could be made easily the other way, too, because of the impact on an event like that would indeed have worldwide ramifications.
Of course, but we would get through it, wouldn't we? And
but it would be better not to have to.
Yeah.
It would be better not to have to. Look, I agree. If you think Air Force One, $4 billion for 2 airplanes, and then you couple that with Washington Post exclusive story today on the Pentagon hiding $125 billion of bureaucratic waste. I still find it fascinating that we didn't find out any of this during Obama. We're only learning about it now on the eve of the inauguration of Trump. But I can tell you some of these, I flew into Martha's Vineyard once for a golf trip on Air Force One, and I was advised to put a chaff dispenser on the airplane in case there was a surface-to-air missile attack on me, because it's all liberals that live there. And I priced it out, and it's way over. A 7-inch television set, not even high definition, a 7-inch television set for a private airplane is $5,000 because you can only buy it from certain places. It has to have FAA approval on all kinds of crazy. $5,000 for a 7-inch, not even high definition TV. It's a racket. It's like concession stand at a ballpark. That's the only place you can go if you want to get, because they won't let you bring it in, so they can charge you whatever they want. It's, and I'm sure there's a lot of that built in with security and cost otherwise on Air Force One. This just stands to reason. Look, we're nearing the end of the broadcast segment here, Bill. And, of course, since I'm offering every caller, I don't know for how much longer I'm going to do it, but today I definitely am, a free brand new iPhone 7 or 7 Plus if you want one.
Well, of course I would. I'd love one.
Well, which carrier are you?
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. Cool. Okay, do you have a color preference?
Absolutely no. Good grief. You never look a gift horse in the mouth. Right. Whatever you got the most of.
Okay, fine and dandy. Will surprise you, but it will come. It's either going to have a T-Mobile or an AT&T SIM card in it, but it's unlocked. It'll work on T-Mobile.
Awesome. That's obviously very generous.
You're more than welcome to it. And if you take it to their store, tell them it's unlocked. Well, tell them it's a gift and take it in the box and that you want to move your T-Mobile number to it, and they'll happily take care of you. Hang on so we can get your address. Don't go away. Answering an email, no, I don't think Jeb Bush will end up in the potential Secretary of State mix. Well, people are asking me because of the opening half hour to pray. Jeb signed up as a lobbyist, and that disqualifies him. Trump's hiring no lobbyists, and if you work with Trump, you can't be a lobbyist for 5 years after Trump fires you. So, sit tight, folks. We're coming back. And I look at it. Now, all the networks are now doing in-depth reports on what all goes into manufacturing Air Force One. Folks, I'm going to tell you, I think I'm going to hold it in reserve. I was going to give Trump credit for a lot of stuff, but that may rub some people wrong. So let me just hold it back. Ari Fleischer is out there. Now, see, this is what happens. Ari Fleischer, hey, people tell me that there's no price tag on this contract yet, so Trump may not know what he's talking about. They're making the mistake once again of... I'm trying to maintain my composure because to me this is so easy. Who was it? Selena Zito said that Trump critics make the mistake of not taking him seriously but taking him literally. Trump supporters do take him seriously but not literally. Trump is a provocateur. Trump has all kinds of reasons for throwing that tweet out there about Air Force One and the contract cost at $4 billion. That's why I spent 20 minutes explaining the backstory here. That Boeing has ties to Obama. You know, Boeing relocated from Seattle to Chicago after Obama's elected. Why the hell would Boeing move from Seattle? So they moved to Chicago. They get in bed with the Obama administration and donate money left and right to the Clintons. They're involved in the Iranian nuke deal. And look, that's fine. Don't misunderstand. I've taken a tour of the Boeing, the jumbo jet factory out in Seattle when we were doing our program out there one time. I'm fascinated by airplanes, aviation, the whole thing, and I have admiration for just the people that work at Boeing and the whole manufacturing process, the design, everything about it. And Boeing is free to sidle up to whoever they want to politically. But it's obvious that the way Trump looks at the world, Boeing made some bad decisions. Sidling up and assisting the Iranians, Trump doesn't think that's a good deal. He doesn't think it was wise for Hillary Clinton greased the skids for Boeing to get a deal in Russia. And that's fine and dandy, except Boeing paid her back. Boeing was donating to her and her husband left and right. But there's much more going on here. They can do their exposés on what it costs to make Air Force One. I guarantee you what the media is going to be doing now is looking into the cost of Air Force One and the manufacturing, what all goes into it, and asking how we're being ripped off and what does Trump know that we don't know. And they're going to miss what his real point with this is. They're going to miss what he's doing, which I think they're going to continue to. Even friendly media at Fox is going to miss this because they're not going to interpret it properly. Anyway, greetings and welcome back. It's great to have you here. The telephone number, 800-282-2882, if you want to be on the program. The email address is lrushmo@eibnet.com. Do you know that Air Force One actually came into being with JFK? He was the first president. In fact, the first plane JFK flew on was designated as a presidential plane was a Lockheed Jetstar. And if you want to know what those, Auric Goldfinger owned one in the Bond movie. And at the end of the movie, when Goldfinger's jet's going down with pussy galore in there, and then they're all parachuting out, and Bond's trying to save the day, that's a Lockheed Jetstar. And it was deemed, Eisenhower flew on one. It was deemed just for whatever reason, just insignificant, not safe enough, large enough. So they designed a Boeing 707. And that lasted through Reagan. From 1960 some odd all the way to, George H.W. Bush was the first president that got the Boeing 747s that are currently being flown as Air Force One. So now they're in the process of upgrading. These are 30 years old. They're completely airworthy. But the line is that it now takes so much time and money to keep them maintained in tip-top shape. And there are two of them, and they go on every trip. One is a backup in case of a mechanical, and the other sometimes used as a decoy. But they're both equally outfitted, and they've got 30 years on them, and they're nearing their lifespan. So this new Boeing deal delivers these two new planes in 2024. Trump's not even going to fly on them. But there's so much more going on with this little tweet of his, and we've done our best to help you understand all the possibilities and all of the vagaries. But now they're going to be doing stories on why does it cost so much in the systems, and they can't tell you half of it because of security concerns and privacy. But trust me, they have shielding from electromagnetic pulse. They have technology that would protect the plane as best it could anyway from surface-to-air missiles. Because the airplane itself cannot take evasive action and stay put together. The G-forces would destroy it. It doesn't have the maneuverability to do it anyway. So they have to have some other method. The communication system, worldwide, satellite, infrared, all kinds of... The president cannot ever be out of communication and has to be able to survive a nuclear attack. Air Force One is shielded in case a nuclear detonation occurs somewhere. There is more in a full... passengers would survive the radiation. It was in the middle of an explosion, no. But it would survive the radiation. If it were not near the explosion, but the radiation cloud spread, it would survive. The passengers could survive inside because of the radiation shield. It's phenomenal what is in these airplanes and the technology that's there. And a lot of it's still classified that we don't even know exists. They're full-fledged operating rooms. An operating room on Air Force One. I mean, a genuine hospital-type operating room. You've got to have doctors and nurses on board if you're going to have an operating room. It's massive. Oh, kitchen, the galley, you mean? I mean, there's 2 or 3 of them. There's 3 or 4 levels in these planes. That's why it fascinates me. It's the degree. Well, you know what fascinates me about technology, both this and anything, is the brain power that has to exist in writing software or designing something to anticipate problems that haven't happened and to build in solutions to those problems that haven't happened. You have to anticipate what the problems might be. For example, I'll just bear with me. I'll give you one example of what I'm talking about here. It's not the best, but space shuttle or any rocket launch. We used to have 2 different launch pads. One was at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California and, of course, Cape Canaveral. Do you know that it took much less thrust and power to launch from Vandenberg than Cape Canaveral? You did? Do you know why? The Earth is rotating. It took more thrust at Vandenberg. The Earth is rotating faster at the equator as you get close to the equator, faster in Florida than it is in California and in Nevada. And the rotation of the Earth is its own boost. Before you even add power, there's a degree of boost. And the von Brauns of the world and the Oppenheimers had to figure this all out. It takes much more power to get a rocket into space the farther north you go, because the Earth rotating around its axis is going slower. Now you might say, wait a minute, the Earth is one thing, it's one ball, and it's all rotating. Yes, but at the equator, for example, for the Earth to travel the same distance that, say, it travels up in the latitude and longitude of New York, the equator has to go a lot farther, so it's going faster. And that speed gives rocket launches a bigger boost, so it takes less rocket fuel. That's why the launches occurred in Florida and not further north. Well, there's no way under the sun I would even conceive of the possibility. I had to read that and learn it somewhere. Those are the kind of things that dazzle me, that you find in your iPhone or that you'll find in your computer or whatever high-tech gadget you use, or a modern-day fully loaded airplane like Air Force One. And it's just amazing. And these things cost. It costs money to figure these out and to plan for them, to incorporate them. And so this $4 billion price tag is probably high. But Trump's reason for doing this, they're also saying Trump's trying to destroy the Boeing stock price. The Boeing stock price is down pennies. That's not what this is about. Okay. There's the most fascinating op-ed in the New York Times today, and I have to share this with you. It is by an elector, a Republican elector in Texas, by the name of Christopher Suprin. And it's headlined, "Why I Will Not Cast My Electoral Vote for Donald Trump." I am a Republican presidential elector, one of the 538 people asked to choose officially the president. Since the election, people have asked me to change my vote based on policy disagreements with Donald Trump. In some cases, they cite the popular vote difference. I do not think president-elects should be disqualified for policy disagreements. I do not think they should be disqualified because they won the Electoral College instead of the popular vote. However, now I am asked to cast a vote on December 19th for someone who shows daily he is not qualified for the office. Now, hang on, folks. You haven't heard anything yet. 15 years ago as a firefighter, I was part of the response to the 9/11 attacks against our nation. That attack and this year's election may seem unrelated, but for me, the relationship becomes clearer every day. Hang on, stick with me. George W. Bush is an imperfect man, but he led us through the tragic days following those attacks. His leadership showed that America was a great nation. That was also the last time I remember the nation united. I watched Mr. Trump fail to unite America and drive a wedge between us. Now, wait. Just now are we getting good. Mr. Trump goes out of his way to attack the cast of Saturday Night Live for bias. He tweets day and night, but he waited 2 days to offer sympathy to the Ohio State community after an attack there. He does not encourage civil discourse, but chooses to stoke fear and create outrage. So we have an elector, a Republican elector, who says he's not going to vote for Trump because Trump attacks the cast of Saturday Night Live. Now wait. He says this is unacceptable. For me, America is that shining city on a hill that Reinaldus Magnus envisioned. It has problems. It has challenges. These can be met and overcome, just as our nation overcame September 11th. Moving forward. Talks about Trump lacking foreign policy experience, lacking demeanor to be commander-in-chief, blah, 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 blah. Alexander Hamilton also reminded us that a president cannot be a demagogue. Mr. Trump urged violence against protesters at his rallies during the campaign. He speaks of retribution against his critics. He has surrounded himself with advisors such as Steve Bannon, who claims to be a Leninist and lauds villains and their thirst for power, including Darth Vader. Really? Rogue One, the latest Star Wars movie, arrives later this month. I am not taking my children to see it to celebrate evil, but to show them that light can overcome it. General Michael T. Flynn, Mr. Trump's pick for National Security Advisor, has his own checkered past about rules. He installed a secret internet connection in his Pentagon office despite rules to the contrary. Sound familiar? I believe electors should unify behind a Republican alternative, an honorable and qualified man or woman such as John Kasich of Ohio. I pray my fellow electors will do their job and join with me in discovering who that person should be. So he's not going to support Trump. He's not going to vote for Trump because Trump has an advisor who admires Darth Vader, and because Trump criticizes Saturday Night Live. It's pathetic. It is literally pathetic. And, of course, no mystery, the New York Times found this guy, or he found them. But he's proud, and he thinks he's virtuous, and he knows that Trump is a reprobate, a heathen, a sybaritic pursuit aspect that just doesn't deserve to be in the White House because he's got an advice, and he's going to go say, he's going to take his kids to see Rogue One is not part of the Star Wars series. It's a Star Wars story, but it's not one of the official Star Wars and Stone. For example, Darth Vader is in it, but Darth Vader is dead in the chronological Star Wars story. So this predates. Anyway, it's supposedly pretty good, too. I mean, if you like Star Wars stuff. Rogue One's supposed to be very, very good. I hope this elector enjoys it. I hope his children are not too frightened by the evil of Darth Vader and Donald Trump. Back to the phones. People patiently waiting. Everybody wants to appear on the EIB network. Punta Gorda, Florida. Mike, great to have you on the program. How you doing, sir?
Hi, Rush. Thank you for taking my phone call.
You bet, sir.
I am 60 years old, and I have been waiting for 27 some odd years for someone like Mr. Trump. The man is brilliant. I voted for Ross Perot back in the late 80s. He told us, do not do NAFTA. and I listened to him. I can't believe the American people have been duped for so many years. He said, do not do it. It's going to ruin us.
He called it that giant sucking sound, Larry. That giant sucking sound from Mexico, Larry, taking all our jobs.
That's the man. That's the man. I went to school with Marty Meehan. I believe he went to Congress at the time, and Clinton brought him in and said, look, he was the holdout. He said, if you vote for NAFTA with me, I will make you chairman of one of my committees. And he folded and went for it. Biggest mistake in the world. And he also said he would do term limits. And when term limits came up, he said, oh, no, now I realize.
Wait, who is this you're talking about?
Marty Meehan.
Oh, Marty Meehan from Boston.
Yes.
Marty Meehan. Right. I remember that.
I went to high school with Marty.
And you believed him?
No. I wrote letters to his office and told him, why'd you do that? And they wrote me some.
By the way, you're from Massachusetts, right? You're not a Florida native.
Oh, I've been in Florida since 2000.
Right, I could tell.
Oh.
I mean, you wouldn't know Marty Meehan if you grew up in Florida.
Yeah, no. But I went to school with him, and he pushed through NAFTA with Clinton, and the biggest mistake ever. I am so happy and so delighted that we finally have somebody. President Donald Trump, as far as I'm concerned, he is like a Ross Perot on steroids, and I love it.
Yeah, Ross Perot. Hand grenade with a bad haircut. He was a force of nature too, just like Trump.
But he knew what we had to do. But he didn't have the stamina and the strength that.
Well, no. Wasn't that Mr. Perot didn't actually want to win? He didn't think he would, and I predicted this when it looked like he was going to. He pulled out of there.
Yeah, that was.
He didn't. He did this. He had. His motives were pure. I mean, his campaigning, his message was pure and it was honest. But his motivations, there were some personal things going on between him and George H.W. Bush, which I don't need to revisit here. But I'm not surprised if you're a Perotista that you also like the Trumpster. It would follow.
I switched from. I was Democrat because my parents told me I was Democrat, and I was duped.
Yeah.
And then when Ross Perot came out, I switched to independent. And what the crazy thing is, living in Florida, being independent, I can't vote in the primary.
Yeah, well, that doesn't work, so you had to switch parties, exactly. Okay, look, Mike, before you get out of here, it's every caller today, and for the past 3 or 4 days, brand new iPhone 7 or iPhone 7 Plus. Your choice, if you want one.
Yes, please.
Well, which one?
Great. And I guess a Plus. It sounds better.
All right. Do you have what's your cell phone carrier?
AT&T.
AT&T. So you can take any color you want. Any color. There's gold, there's rose gold, there's silver, there is black.
Let's go with the black.
Wonder why.
Oh, whatever. Any color doesn't matter.
No. It's fine. I wonder why everybody's going with black. I've kind of steered people there because it's the new color. But if that's what
I just want to thank you for your show.
Well,
it's so informative.
I appreciate that very much. I'm glad you're out there. I really appreciate it, Mike. Let me remind you now to hang on so that we can get an address to FedEx your phone to you. It's going to be unlocked. It'll work on any carrier. There's no SIM card in it, so don't forget that. We'll be right back. Yeah, so we'll do something. It's 5 and 22, and then we'll double back and get 2021. People got to hear those. I mentioned near the end of the program yesterday that it looking like Ken, the Ken doll of Ken and Barbie fame, may actually be gay, which would not be a surprise to me, that Ken has been gay all these years, only known by the manufacturers and designers. Now, the reason I say this is they have a story here from the New York Post yesterday, complete with a photo of Ken and Barbie, looking like what Ken looks like he's a gay matador, and Barbie looks like she's going to a cocktail party at Oprah's. Well, maybe Beyonce's, I don't know. And the headline is, at long last, Ken gets his own designer clothes. And I'm telling you, it's the gay flag. The clothes are the gay flag, the rainbow, and they're vertical stripes. You don't wear vertical stripes. Golfers will tell you this. You don't wear vertical stripes. I mean, they overweight people do it because they think it makes them look slim. But you're supposed to wear the diagonal. Not diagonal, but the horizontal stripes. But these stripes, here they are. Bright red, blue, white, yellow, looks like aqua, pea soup green, which happens to be the color right there in the crotch. I wonder if that means anything. Pea soup green is the color where the crotch is. Does that mean anything in that world, Mr. Snerd? Well, I'm just asking, because I don't know either. And here's the story. Ken is finally getting the style makeover he deserves. And who better to dress up Barbie's beau than fashion designer Jeremy Scott? Have you ever heard of Jeremy Scott? Is anybody in there? It's just not our world. Jeremy Scott. The doll duo, complete with new togs and slammin' hair, being sold as a set for $200. Scott has Barbie don a version of a dress worn by Stella Maxwell on the red carpet for the 2015 Video Music Awards. That's a part of the Dynasty-worthy gown and part artsy graffiti. Ken is getting his first ever designer treatment, a miniature version of the suit that Jeremy Scott wore alongside Maxwell. It's. I mean, it doesn't say here, but I mean that's the rainbow flag color, right, Snerdley? It does to me. So anyway, I wonder if all this time that all of these little girls that have been playing with Ken and Barbie dolls have known that Ken is gay. Oh, they did? They got married? Ken and Barbie got... Well, then that kind of blows up the theory that Ken was... Well, it actually doesn't, does it? Ken could have been trapped, in a patriarchal culture and had, in order to get anywhere close to Barbie, had to stay in a closet or what have you. Well, we'll link to it at rushlimbaugh.com, and you can look at it yourself and decide if there is any meaning to it. Jonah Goldberg of National Review was on Fox this morning. He was on America's Newsroom. Jonah is not happy with the Trump transition. He's nervous because he's doing things that just aren't done. By the way, has anybody commented on the crease in Trump's slacks yet? That has sat down for an interview? That's coming. Somebody's going to do that. Well, anyway, the discussion subject was Trump's transition, and this making some people nervous. This is what Jonas said.
This is all uncharted territory about how to do a presidential transition. Normally, presidents don't try to set foreign policy or new economic policy while the actual president is still in office. If you look like with the Taiwan thing, if this was this brilliant, thinking ahead of the curve kind of new strategy, setting the tone kind of thing, why did the Trump team put out Mike Pence, his vice president, and Kellyanne Conway to say this is not a big deal, they just called us, this is a minor thing? The messaging on a lot of these sorts of things doesn't seem to be as thought through. It seems to be there's a lot of ad hoc stuff going on here, and I get it, that's how Trump operates, to keep people on their toes and keep people guessing, but that's not how administrations need to operate.
Can't operate improv. Can't operate ad hoc. Got to have a plan. Got to have a schedule. Got to have an itinerary. Can't deviate from it. Got to do this. And Trump is not doing it. I think, Trump's, there's a poll out there. You don't want to talk about fake news. How about fake polling? Do you think we had any of that during the campaign? I think we had a heck of a lot of fake polling. Anyway, the polls out there right now, that just Trump's approval rating is just off the charts. And it's totally understandable. He already looks like he's accomplishing serious things and changing the direction of the country quickly in a good way. And you know something else? I mentioned yesterday, I think one of the reasons that people are so upbeat is that we're not on defense anymore. You realize 8 years of being on defense, 8 years of having to react, and 8 years, by the way, I think this is huge, folks, 8 years of people thinking that we were losing the country, that Obama and the Democrats were succeeding in convincing a majority of Americans that America as founded was no good, and that we needed to change, and we needed to stop this business of constant growth, stop this business of America being a superpower. We had to understand that America was just like every other nation, and we're going to go through our periods of decline, and we have to manage that. Well, we rejected that out of hand, but the fear was that because of media coverage, everything looked like a majority of Americans were buying into it, and we now know they weren't. We now know it wasn't even close. We now know that we haven't lost the country. We're not that close to it. I mean, we're not out of the woods, don't misunderstand, because the left is always there. But it's such a stark contrast of going from one feared reality to the realization that we were wrong, and that alone makes people upbeat and positive. And Trump is the reason for it, and people are capitalizing on it and feeling the joy. But some of the never-Trumpers, it's just not the way it's done. It's not right. Baghdad Jim McDermott was also out there. He is livid that Trump's tweeting and acting like he's the president when he isn't yet.
I just got a call from a reporter about a tweet which the president-elect has made canceling the contract with the Boeing company and the federal government to build Air Force One. The last time I looked, the president of the United States is still Barack Obama. He will be president of this country until the 20th of January. What we have right now is a president-elect running around the world with his tweet bar, making statements that are disruptive and distractive for the American public.
So yet another Jurassic Park Democrat, Baghdad Jim McDermott, telling Trump to get off his lawn. And the tweet bar. I don't know. Look, I don't tweet, so I never heard of a tweet bar, but I wasn't going to say anything because maybe people who tweet, maybe there is a tweet bar. A tweet bar obviously does a place you go. Trump doesn't drink, so it can't be that he's talking about. Tweet bar. Maybe this is how Baghdad Jim. His computer is made up of bars on there, menu bar, and the Twitter is in its bar up there, and he thinks it's the twit bar. Who knows? He's a Jurassic Park guy. He was one of these human shields in Baghdad. He was going to go over there and shield Saddam Hussein if Bush was going to launch an attack. Okay, a couple of sound bites here. Jeff Waltz is the women's basketball coach at Maryland. No, wait, Louisville. He's the Louisville women's basketball coach. And this happened last Thursday night in Louisville after the number 5 Maryland basketball team held off number 7 Louisville 78-72. And we have 2 sound bites. This guy is fit to be tied because he thinks his team didn't go all out because they got participation trophies. Here's the first of 2 sound bites.
You got to have a will. Right now, the generation of kids that are coming through, everybody gets a damn trophy, okay? You finish last, you come home with a trophy. You kidding me? I mean, what's that teaching kids? It's okay to lose. And unfortunately, it's our society. It's what we're building for. And it's not just in basketball, it's in life.
And he continued with that line of thought.
Everybody thinks they should get a job. Everybody thinks they should get a good job. No, that's not the way it works. But unfortunately, that's what we are preparing for. Because you finish 5th, you walk home with this nice trophy, parents are all excited. No, not to be too blunt, but you're a loser. When you go to get a job, there's competition. And what are you going to do to stand out? But unfortunately, we're not preparing these kids before they get to us to be ready for that. I know it's a long time ago, but days we played, when you lost, you went home. There was no friendship bracket. Let's go on the left side to the friendship games so everybody can play 2 more games. No, you went home. You went home a loser, and then you worked at it if you wanted to be good.
Where did they find it? How did this guy get hired? How in the world at Louisville? How did he get hired anywhere? The women's coach. And his team was number 7 in the nation. They lost to number 5 Maryland. And he goes on. No, don't misunderstand. The guy's exactly right, but I don't know how this happened last Thursday, and this is Tuesday, and he's still there. I mean, no, he's dead on right. Don't misunderstand. This is the kind of thinking that the multicultural curriculum thinks they have banished for the last 25 years from American sports and culture. Feel like temperature out there, 90 degrees. On December the 6th. Here's Donald Trump. He went back down to the elevators at Trump Tower moments ago this afternoon in New York City.
This is Masa of SoftBank from Japan, and he's just agreed to invest $50 billion in the United States and 50,000 jobs. And he's one of the great men of industry, so I just want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you'd like to speak to him, you can. But one of the truly great men, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's Mayoshi-san of SoftBank in Japan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think I met this guy at Trump International. I could be mistaken, but I was walking along and Trump, come on, you got him. He's the richest guy in Japan. Name sounds familiar. Anyway, his name is Masayoshi Son of SoftBank in Japan. 50,000 jobs, $50 billion investment, meaning I guess they're going to have branches and stuff here. Trump at Trump Tower today. Baghdad Jim said, well, wait, but... Oh, it's going to take off everybody. The never Trumpers, the liberals. Because, see, Jonah Goldberg pointed him, then Baghdad Jim McDermott. He's not president yet. This is very gauche, by the way. Very, very bad behavior. Very gauche, very unsophisticated, very uncool to just literally go in there and assume that you can take over the job before you even have it, with no respect for the sitting president. This is what they're thinking. Oh, folks, it is possible that I will not be here tomorrow. The odds are pretty good that I will not be here tomorrow. We got Mark Stein in standby mode, but it's a unavoidable personal thing. It normally happens on weekends, but this is not happening on a weekend. I need to get to it and do it. So they'll be back on Thursday regardless. I just wanted to let you know that so that you weren't shocked and surprised and felt disappointed and let down tomorrow when I didn't hear my voice. TheHill.com has additional details on the $50 billion investment by SoftBank in Japan. Mr. Masayoshi Son of the SoftBank outfit in Japan said that he would never do this. He would not have agreed to invest $50 billion in the U.S. if Trump had not won the election. He's doing it precisely because of Trump. That's what TheHill.com is reporting. I'm telling you, heads are exploding out there. You know what? It isn't going to be long before, well, I'll make that prediction when I get back. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be here tomorrow. It's always possible I will be. But regardless, back here Thursday for sure. Thanks so much for being with us, my friends, and we'll see you whenever the next time is.